Season 9 is getting pretty crazy. The initial changes were insane, then we got a big hotfix, and now an extra large mid-season patch too. The meta hasn't even stabilized yet, and Blizzard is already making sure that as many heroes as possible are viable. Looking at the changes, it's definitely a pretty good start. If you're looking to rank up on your favorite heroes, check out the link in the description below to get access to a GameLeap membership. There are tons of guides and courses that can level up your game and help you get better, faster. Make sure to check it out and enjoy the video. First off, the heal reduction DPS passive that just got introduced is being nerfed, but only slightly. It's now a 15% healing reduction instead of 20. Considering that the passive is basically always active on at least someone during the fight, even just a 5% decrease is a massive change. Getting the first pick in a fight is really important, because it's so hard to recover from a 4v5. Less healing reduction means it's easier to recover both from getting snowballed and from even getting close to dying in the first place. This change also makes it a lot easier to play brawl or rush comps, so instead of sitting in the backline spamming or diving isolated targets, you can now expect to see a lot more 3-to-1 pushing happening. And on top of the reduced passive, there are still a ton of projectiles that are too big. Projectiles faster than 50 meters per second are receiving the Hanzo treatment. Instead of getting a 0.1 meter size increase from before Season 9, it's now just a 0.075 increase. This applies to heroes like Zenyatta, Kiriko, and Genji, so it's a pretty impactful change. But the major reason for the nerf is that those projectiles were so big that they would hit chest hitboxes when they should have hit the head. So hopefully this doesn't make the heroes feel significantly worse at dealing damage. And finally, before we get into the hero changes, competitive mode is getting even more upgrades to make everything feel a lot better. Game information like the modifiers that affect your rank can now be checked after the match, and you can also check the rank range of a match whenever instead of just at the start of the game. There's a couple other changes that make things more accessible, which is really nice, but it's time to get into the new changes, finally. So starting off with Doomfist. Doom is doing pretty well, but his ultimate has been a weak spot for a while, so Meteor Strike now deals a minimum of 50 damage instead of 15, and the rest of the ultimate is also scaled accordingly. This is a pretty big damage buff, because it means that instead of dealing 15 to 100 damage in the outer ring, it's now 50 to 100. Meteor Strike is a very hit or miss ultimate when you're looking for damage. The damage falls off fast even if you're just a hair away from the center, but now it's going to confirm way more damage on every single part of the ultimate except for the inner circle, which already deals 300. Only a small part of the outer ring actually deals 100 damage before it immediately starts dropping to 50, but at least it's not scaled all the way down to 15 anymore. This also means that hitting a team with the ultimate is now pretty much on par with a full-scale ultimate engage. You can slam in for 50 damage, punch for even more, then ult, and then you'll be dealing at least 50 damage on top of the 40% slow for 3 seconds, and you'll likely have all your abilities back for another 50 with the slam, and that's already a pretty good engage where it used to be just a decent extension to your normal ability cycle. Now we've got Mauga, who's been basically unplayable for long enough. He's getting an upgraded cardiac overdrive, which is interesting considering it's definitely the strongest part of his kit. But it's not a straight buff, although it's definitely going to make him more flexible. The cardiac overdrive aura now lasts 1 second shorter, but the cooldown has also been decreased by 2 seconds. It's now 4 seconds of lifesteal and damage reduction, and then a 10-second cooldown. It's not as good as the 5-second duration and 10-second cooldown he had when he launched, but is also getting an extra bonus. Cardiac overdrive now also gives Mauga an instant 100 HP overhealth that works just like his passive does. It starts decaying 2 seconds after the overdrive ends, but it'll stick around if you keep dealing more critical damage, but you can still only get a maximum of 150. This helps a lot when you're aggressively pushing. It means you have a small health buffer to break shields and wait out matrix abilities so you can deal hero damage and activate that lifesteal and passive. Although 4 seconds only means that D.Va can deny 75% of the ability's duration with full matrix. Even if he has it more often, a shorter duration is always easier to survive. It's probably a good change for Mauga and it won't make his boost too oppressive, but he still looks a lot better in full aggro rush engages because his charge stomp damage has also been increased from 45 to 60. That also means it'll do 120 critical damage on the stun instead of 90. Obviously, Blizzard wants Mauga to engage hard with his team, and it could actually work. Running in for a slam into cardiac overdrive engage is already a strong push, and even with just a 4-second duration, you'll just have to wait 2 seconds after it ends before you can run away again. But Mauga's not the only option. We're getting even more frontline tanks buffed, moving on with Orisa. She's pretty good at countering heroes right now, but she still has a bad ultimate. The health buffs have been sure of that. But now it charges 25% faster for the first 2.5 seconds. Overall, it's just a better ultimate. It reaches 200% and higher earlier, so it can actually secure kills on heroes without mobility, and pulling someone in for a 100 damage burst now goes really fast. It might be the best way to use it from now on. Next up is Ramatra, who's getting a buff for his weakest ability, Ravenous Vortex, or his slow. Its total damage has gone up from 45 to 70, and the cooldown has been reduced from 12 seconds to 11. With these buffs, Ram might confidently be the new all-rounder tank. He's only been getting buffs recently, so if he's ever going to need to be toned down, it'll be after this patch, but it's still up to the player to make use of the better Vortex. It's easy to block, and 11 seconds is still a long cooldown. We're almost done with the tank changes, just a couple buffs to go. First up is the only health change this patch. Reinhardt is getting 25 more armor, and that's a straight buff with no drawbacks. He's even getting his Fire Strike buff too, now dealing 120 damage instead of 100 for the first time since the beginning of the game. He'll be a lot better, since now he's got 300 armor to break through. He'll still be a big focus target, but it's going to take a lot longer to kill him compared to before, and he can strike back with his boosted Fire Strikes. And the last tank change is Roadhog's, with a pretty decent hook buff. He's once again pulling heroes in closer. It's back to 3 meters after being 4 meters for a whole year now. The shotgun rework has also increased his concentrated damage, so he's a lot more lethal, but he still can't consistently one-shot everyone. He still needs Pigpen, and it's also gotten changed. It doesn't launch enemies as high up anymore, as the vertical knockback has been decreased by 43%. This should make it more consistent for confirming the one-shot, but it's a small change. It definitely wasn't making things hard with the small upwards knockback effect. That's it for the tanks, so let's get on with the DPS. Mei is getting an ammo and self-heal buff. She now has 20 extra max ammo and her ice block heals her at a faster rate. She fell out of the meta pretty hard thanks to ammo nerfs at the end of last year, and the Season 9 changes made her even worse. She's not easier, but she's at least better suited for the new status quo. Her new ammo means she has 2 more icicles per reload, which helps her damage output, and her ice block can now always heal her up to full health. At the very least, it's not a bad start. The other 300 HP brawler is also getting buffs. Reaper's Death Blossom now deals more damage per second from 170 to 185, and it also charges 12% faster, which is very big considering Season 9 nerfed all the ultimate charge rates. And again, just like with Mei, it's not going to be easy right off the bat, but those ultimate engages will be happening more often and they'll be securing more kills. Can't complain about that. And neither can Sombra since she's also getting an ultimate charge rate reduction, although by 8% instead of 12. But for EMP, that's pretty big. Again, any ultimate charge buff or nerf at this point makes a big difference. And it's not all Sombra's got. Virus now deals more impact damage, which is doubled against hack targets. It got buffed from 10 to 25, which when doubled is 50, added onto the 100 damage over time, and you get a lot of burst. Although you need to set it up with your hack, it's now very much worth it in pretty much every situation. She could become a pretty big meta staple with this, and she's even got a little quality of life change too. Her translocator now goes right through breakable objects, so it won't be stopped by fences or poles. If that happened to me, I would definitely have been pushing for this change earlier. And for the final 2 DPS to get buffed, we've got the turret heroes. First, it's Symmetra with 3 separate buffs. From most impactful to least impactful, her primary fire damage has finally been upgraded. It now deals a base of 65 DPS at level 1, which is only 5 more than previous, but the damage is scaled accordingly. So level 2 does 130 and level 3 does 195. It's not ideal that level 1 starts so low, but now it's at least on the same level as Moira and not worse. The next buff goes to her turrets that now have more health and more damage. 50 health instead of 30 and 30 DPS instead of 25. It's a bit scary, but they have been basically obsolete thanks to the health buffs. Although they won't break to a melee anymore, they do still break to basically everything, and the extra 5 DPS on the turret shouldn't be too much. Just beware the triple turret trap that now deals 90 DPS instead of 75. And for her final change, Sim's teleporter now has more health, specifically 50 more health and 50 more shields for a total of 300. It's a pretty good change. It was always easy to destroy for any damage hero for pretty much no drawback, but now you need to invest more time to break it, so you have to choose between destroying the escape or helping to defend against the teleporting gauge. And for the final DPS and second turret hero, it's obviously Torbjörn, and he's only getting his turret changed with a small buff from 11 turret damage to 13. That's a modest increase of 8 damage per second for a total of 52. It's safe to say he'll still be pretty bad, but this was a buff that he needed. Just like for Sim, his turret's been cosmetic this season, and although it's not massively better now, it's something to start with. Finally, for the support changes, and unfortunately they're getting the least changes of all, but they're still all buffs. First up is Ana, who's really dropped in pick rate even as one of the most popular heroes. Her self-healing was already low, and then all the projectile and health changes came through, making it even worse. But now her biotic nade is back to a decent state. It now deals and heals 90, which is 30 more than before. That makes it much better for keeping yourself alive, but also much more impactful when used offensively. Even though dive has been really good lately, Ana hasn't fit into the comp at all, mostly because she's too easy to kill. But now that she's got her bio nade routed out, she's way more effective across all ranks. It's also pretty good that Brig is also getting buffs. Her repair pack cooldown has been reduced to 1 second, which is pretty good for her healing output. On top of that, she's also one of the ult charge buff winners this patch, getting an 8% cost reduction, so she'll be healing more with 5-second cooldown heal packs and getting more ultimates along with it. The 2 newest supports also need some buffs, so firstly we're getting an Illari buff, although it's a very specific one. The fire rate and charge of her primary fire have been adjusted to give her more damage per second, but not more burst damage. The maximum charge time for full damage has been reduced by 0.05 seconds, and the recovery time between shots has been reduced by 0.1 seconds. It's a very calculated change to not mess up the feel of the gun, and it definitely works. When you try it out, it feels really good, and it's also a net buff. You don't deal more damage per bullet, but each bullet does charge up 0.15 seconds faster. And to finish off the video, Lifeweaver is getting some belated maintenance buffs. Just like Mercy, his healing has been pretty ineffective in Season 9 so far. That's why his healing blossoms now have a higher maximum of 80 heals instead of 70, but you'll have to charge slightly longer to get that maximum heal. He'll still do roughly the same amount of heals per second, but it's in a higher burst. So to clarify, it now takes 1.15 seconds to fully charge for 80 heals instead of 1 second for 70. It's not a significant buff at all, and it might honestly go pretty unnoticed, but with the heal reduction passive, it should still be decent enough. Lifeweaver doesn't need much more in the healing department, and his utility remains really strong. And he also still has 275 health and Ramacho level damage. He might be power creeping right beneath our noses. That's it for the mid-season patch Season 9. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.